You're about to listen to Enthusiastically Self-Employed, the podcast created for you as a coach, consultant, speaker, and/or author. I created this podcast for those of us who are enthusiastic about growing our business and learning along the way. My name is Brenda Meller, and I'm your host. Prior to becoming enthusiastically self-employed, I was a corporate marketer who always admired those who were self-employed. Through this podcast, I'll share my learnings and expert guest interviews with you. You'll learn business, marketing, and LinkedIn tips to help you as a solopreneur or small business owner. Remember to follow this show to get the newest podcast episodes loaded into your podcast player of choice. Now let's get started. Welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, this is a member spotlight interview with another member of my Marketing with Meller learning community. And today I am featuring Elaine Belson. So what I decided to do with my podcast a while back is shift the focus to interview people who are already a part of my world, already part of my membership program or my signature program, The Recipe, and just give them the spotlight because, hey, you know what? They're a part of my inner circle, so to speak. And it does a few things. First, it gives them some added visibility. And second, I'm using my platform, my spotlight, to help those that are working with me. So I'm sharing this with you because this might inspire you as well. If you do host a podcast or a live stream or things of that nature, often we will interview people from outside of our members and client base to bring new people into our podcast and our world. And a lot of times we hope that they will share it along so we're reaching new audience members. Now, what I've realized is that often doesn't happen. Occasionally you'll get people sharing along, but more often than not, you're just republishing that broadcast to your current community. So I've decided if I'm going to publish it to my current community, if I'm going to spend my valuable time, we only have 24 hours in a day, right? I'm going to choose to spend that time on people who are members of my programs or clients of my offerings already. So hopefully that gives you a bit of inspiration. And today you'll learn a little bit more about Elaine Belson and her one-to-one coaching. Now, on to the show. All right. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where in the world you are and what time of day it is that you're listening to this interview, or maybe listening on the podcast for that matter. This is our Marketing with Meller series where I do member spotlight interviews. And today I am joined by Elaine Belson. I'm going to be interviewing Elaine. Elaine, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to be talking in these member spotlight interviews. I asked members of the Marketing with Meller community to pick one product, one service, one offering, and we're going to do a little bit of a deeper dive into it, learn more about it, the path to do business with the person as well. So we get marketing perspective, but we also learn about our members through the process as well. And I'll just remind anyone who's on the Zoom with us in Marketing with Meller that I'm going to ask some questions of Elaine first in the first 10 or 15 or so minutes, and then we'll open up for audience questions in the second segment of this. This will be housed inside the Marketing with Meller program library for the video, but it'll also be going on my podcast, which is called Enthusiastically Self-Employed. So that'll be coming up in the podcast probably within the next 2 months on air. All right. So Elaine, first of all, I want to just ask the question. There may be people within Marketing with Meller or even listening on the podcast who really haven't heard too much about you yet. So if you could start with, give us your introduction. Tell us a bit about yourself. What do you do and who do you help?
I am this self-authority coach, and I also am a speaker and psychotherapist, and I'm also an Army veteran. And some people know that I joined the Army at the age of 42. I focus on helping women who are hard on themselves to develop a sense of self and to make decisions using emotions, values, and reason, and to learn how to set boundaries without looking for permission, and to what I call embrace your mistakes without being hard on yourself about it.
I love it. And we were talking a bit in the pre-show, and I know you have a variety of different mantras that you use within your business. Did you want to share with us one of your favorite or something maybe that's applicable to what we'll be talking about today?
Gosh, I have so many. One of the ones that I like is when you embrace your mistakes, you disarm your enemies. In other words, that when you accept yourself for being or forgive yourself for being human, no one can make you feel ashamed of it.
I love it. Yeah, something I think all of us can relate to, and it hits you very in a very poignant way as well. So thank you for sharing that with us. All right. So Elaine, so tell us what we'll be talking about today. You can talk about a service, an offering, something you're doing. What would you like to talk about today?
So, my one-to-one coaching, I offer a 60-minute mindset reset and then a 90-minute, which is more of a deep dive
Good.
one
Okay.
to
So now I'm going to put my marketing hat on and just ask you some questions about this. So tell us a bit about who this service is designed for and what are the problems that you're helping them to solve or the challenges that people might be coming to you that would warrant them booking a coaching session with you.
like primarily, I'm very passionate about empowering women and helping them to build what I call their self-authority, which is turning inward and relying on themselves more, trusting their decisions, trusting their instincts, and also not using other people as what I call mirrors for a sense of self and learning how to self-validate. That's who I serve. And the one-on-one coaching sessions are usually looking at that mindset and that gets in the way of that, particularly like overthinking is a good example. And I talked to them about the different types of overthinking, some of which I talked about in my business marketing summit presentation. And yeah, so I we go into that and I use a lot of emotional intelligence also because I believe that we have feelings for the same reason we have pain and hunger. They're information of a need or a threat that we're overlooking. And so what I teach them is rather than doing all of that, the overthinking, to turn to their emotions because their emotions are there to help them to make good decisions and to achieve balance. So there's all that. And then the other piece is the what I call embracing your mistakes, which is, and I actually have another mantra for that. Some people might be aware of and be old enough to remember Columbo, the detective. I tell my clients to be like Columbo without the trench coat and cigar, to basically be inquisitive about themselves, to ask questions rather than being judgmental of themselves.
That's great. I like that analogy for those of you who are familiar with the detective shows on there as well. So, I want to address one quick thing. Elaine referenced the summit. We recently held a small business marketing summit, and Elaine was one of our speakers at the event. And she talked about how to stop overthinking what you're doing from a marketing perspective. Really great talk. And that playback is still available. I'll drop the link into the show notes for those that are listening on the podcast. But I do want to ask when people are working with you, when they're reaching out to book you, to do a coaching session with them, Elaine, is there something in their lives that's prompting them to do? Are they coming to you by way of referral? Tell us a little bit about what that path is that would lead people to you.
It could either be referral or it could be meeting me or seeing me speak or finding me on LinkedIn. That's one way. And I do have a website. It's called theselfauthoritycoach.com. And on there, if they go to pricing, they can directly book a session with me.
Okay, wonderful. And you have the two different offerings you mentioned. It was a 1 hour session and a 90-minute session.
Yes.
And is there anything that's significant? Obviously, the time duration, you can go a little bit deeper in the 90-minute session. And do you offer other offerings too where people might meet with you more than once, or is it usually a one-off session that you're working with?
No, I do. I offer packages of 3 and 6 as well. And those are at a little bit of a discount.
Yeah, wonderful. And I know in the past I work with consultants too, and sometimes I work with counselors and things like that. And sometimes you're like, I know I'm not going to get this done in one session, but let's start our conversation off, and then we might continue to work together until I feel like our issues have been resolved. And sometimes it's just nice to have someone to talk to. You get so much inside your head, Elaine, that sometimes it's just nice to have that other person to bounce ideas off. Is that what you find sometimes with your coaching clients as well?
Yes, and it's interesting because when they do come to me for the first time, one of the things that they'll say is they feel better after one session. And I tell them it's because, for one thing, you've been holding back doing something about it. And just the feeling of taking action and being proactive makes them feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think you mentioned this already too. So if someone is interested in booking the service with you, what's the next first step? Is it going through the website? Is it messaging you through LinkedIn? Tell us a little bit about that.
They can do either. They can DM me on LinkedIn, and I also have a way that they can book a 15-minute call on my profile for a discovery call so we can talk about what their needs are and what would best fit them. Or they can go directly to my website, which is again theselfauthoritycoach.com.
Mhm.
And if they go into pricing, they can see the different offerings.
Okay, wonderful. And one other question too, we know who this is for. Who is this not for? Is there people that you would say it's really designed more for this category of person versus another category? What would you say to that?
I know there are a lot of men who will say that they're hard on themselves. And I'm certainly, as a psychotherapist who's been doing this work for 30 years, am equipped to help men as well as women. But my focus is on women because I think that they are particularly hard on themselves. And I want to empower them to feel comfortable asserting themselves. Because I think in our culture and just as a gender, I feel
Mhm.
like that's something that they need support with.
Yeah, agree. And I think sometimes as women, we can relate to women because we've been in that same boat ourselves and we can really help to understand that perspective that comes into that. So thank you for sharing. So what I'd like to do now is we're going to open up the floor and to our Marketing with Meller community. And I want you to put on your marketing hats. And if there's any questions you'd like to ask Elaine about her one-to-one coaching that we haven't already addressed, you can raise your hand, or if you want to just unmute yourself and say, "Hey, Brenda," you can start talking. But if you're inside Zoom, I always prefer the raise hand because then I can see who's next up on deck to ask any questions of this. And again, this is a really great way of helping to show support of Elaine. And also for those of you who've gone through and done a member spotlight interview before, you know what it feels like to be in the hot seat when Brenda says, "Hey, does anyone have any questions?" And you're like in a panic, like nobody has any questions on there. So it does help us to keep the conversation flowing on there. And you might even think back to when we interviewed you, what were some of the questions that people asked you in there as well? So that was enough to get a little bit of a prompt. And I see Pam Lippett has her hand raised. So Pam, what questions do you have for Elaine?
Well, first of all, hello, Elaine. It's good to see you here. And my question is, can you tell us? I know you can't tell us any exact examples or anything about an exact person, but can you give us like a couple stories of who has come to you and how you have helped them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Off the top of my head, I can think of a couple. I have one client I'm working with right now who's a college professor, and she is very much of a perfectionist. And she has, though, this insecurity because she has a master's degree and a lot of her colleagues have PhDs. And so we talk about that, and we talk about her need to feel like she has to put on this certain persona in order to feel good about herself. And it's really hard for her to let go and do what I call embracing your humanity, right? And being comfortable with that you're good enough the way that you are. And that doesn't mean that you're perfect, but it's about allowing yourself, giving yourself grace to be human. So that's one example. Another example is a college student that I'm working with right now. And we talk about her anxiety a lot. She also worries a lot about people pleasing, which I know a lot of women can relate to. And I talk about not using people as mirrors. And so what I teach her instead is how to self validate. And I won't go into the details, but I have two techniques. One is what I call be your own best friend, and the other one's called the opposite of the golden rule. And just teaching her how to start looking inward for validation instead of looking for reassurance from others. Does that answer your question?
It absolutely does. I think I have actually took to heart some of those things as well, especially the self-validation piece.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pam. Wonderful. Okay, I see Royce is raising his hand, and then we'll go to Rose next. So, Royce, I know your video off, but are you able to unmute yourself and ask your question?
I hope so. That's for sure. Okay.
Loud
Yes.
and clear.
Thanks for this. So great to see you, Elaine. It's just like this along the same lines as Pam. Have you seen any trends of what people are struggling with, and have they changed?
The one thing that I hear over and over again from women is I'm really hard on myself. And I always respond, yeah, you and every person with almost every person with two X chromosomes, because it's just that common. And it's my humorous way of normalizing. Unfortunately, I wish I could say that it's gotten better, but I don't think that it has. You would think with all the advancement with women that they would feel more of a sense of confidence, but that trend seems to be really hard to overcome. And I think one of the reasons why is because the way people tend to approach it is very much from a cognitive standpoint, like challenging beliefs. And that's why I want people to understand that those, like the overthinking and being hard on yourself, is really what I call chocolate cake. It's a way of coping with feeling uncomfortable. And so until you understand that, you're not going to change. In fact, another one of my mantras is that if information and reason were enough to change minds, people would never speed on the highway or eat junk food. In other words, we can know what's good for us and we can know why it's good for us, but if we don't have the insight to understand where it's coming from, we're not going to change. So you need insight and then problem solving and then skills. So those are the three things that I feel like I provide as a coach.
All right,
Awesome.
wonderful. Thank you, Royce. Okay, we'll go Rose, and then on deck will be Tom. So, Rose, can you unmute yourself?
Okay, I'm glad you caught Tom's hand because it blends in the background. He had his hand up before me, but that's okay. I'm glad you see it. So, my question for you is more about you because you piqued my interest when you said that you joined the military at 42. So, please tell me a little bit more about that because being a veteran myself, I didn't know you could join at that age. So, I'm curious to know more about that and why you made that choice at that age.
I always wanted to be part of something bigger than myself and to have a bigger impact. And it was actually by accident. We went to an air show, and I don't remember what it was about just looking around and seeing those service members, but the idea sparked a fire in me to look into it. And the more I looked into it, the more I felt like, yeah, this is what I was been looking for. And the reason why I was 42 was because that was just happens to be when the idea came to me. And people who know me well know that when I can be passionate about something and I can be determined. And I reached out to them. I actually reached out to the Air Force first, and they said that they would need a waiver because I was too old at the time. But the Army was willing to take me. And I actually in some respects felt like that was more appropriate because I think the Army needed me more at that time because we were in the middle of two wars, Iran and Afghanistan. And we were told when we went to basic, it's not a question of if, but when you will be deploying.
And what was your MOS?
I think it was 70B, but it was social work officer. I don't know if I remember the number, but I remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. And how about you, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, I was 92 to golf. I was a cook. I joined at 17 to make sure I could pay for college. So it was, I have no other options. And I wanted to get myself out of the situation I was growing up in. And it absolutely did that for me. So thank you for asking.
You're
Wonderful.
welcome.
And I
Thanks
want to
for
say
your
to both of you, thank you for your service as well. I've always learned from an etiquette standpoint, if someone says that they've served in the military, we should show our appreciation for that. It's similar to if you've ever been on a call with someone and they say, my spouse or parent or somebody has passed away, even if it was 25 years ago, I still acknowledge and say, I'm sorry for your loss. It's a good etiquette thing. And I forgot to do it earlier. So I appreciate Rose coming in and asking the question. So I had the opportunity to acknowledge both of you for your service as well. All right, moving us. Oh, go ahead. I think Rose was speaking and then it got muted again. Let's try it one more time.
I'd love to just show her something that's in my office quick. I collected Barbies when I was a kid. It was like one of the few things as a poor kid that I got that was special. And for some reason, I just had to have this boot camp Barbie. I was like, Mom, I want the army Barbie so bad.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
And so she moved out of her rental and into her own house, and I found this in a box, and I was like, this has to go in my office, because now I'm army Barbie. I'm veteran Barbie. So I'm so glad that I begged for this as a child and got it, and now it gets to be something special to add even more momentum to. And being that you're blonde, you're definitely army Barbie.
I love
Thank you.
Our podcast
Absolutely.
viewers can't see the box, but it's definitely a Barbie in a box, and it says boot camp Barbie on it too. So thank you for sharing that,
Great.
Rose. That's very cool. All right, we're going to move us along here. Next up, we have Tom. So Tom, would you like to unmute, and what question do you have for Elaine?
Absolutely. Elaine, I love hearing your story. I know when we became connected on LinkedIn, I immediately wanted to learn more about you. So I did that on your page, but I knew it was you. So I went back because I remember this question that said, ask me how overthinking is like chocolate cake. So it got my curiosity. So you have to answer. Sorry, I asked the question.
I feel like you answered this before, but when she was mentioning that earlier, I said, ooh, chocolate cake. And I just started going off onto a little, like the cartoon character floating into the field with the chocolate cake in the background. So how is overthinking like chocolate cake, Elaine?
So sometimes when we're uncomfortable, we might reach for chocolate cake as a way of coping. And so overthinking is basically the same. It's like something that we reach for. It's a way of coping with uncomfortable feelings. But like chocolate cake, it doesn't solve anything. It makes us feel good in the moment, but it's not solving anything in the long run. So that's where it's so important, because I think people, when they overthink, they take it at face value, and they almost even might assume that this means that it's a reflection on their self-esteem. And so that's why it's so important for them to understand that it's really just a way of coping, and that the real issue is there's a feeling underneath that you're trying to cope with.
Do you find, Elaine, that is that pertinent to a large range of people, or is that pertinent to a specific group?
It's everybody. So I've identified 6 types of overthinking, and I don't expect people to memorize this, but you might relate to it. There's mind reading, second guessing, comparing yourself to others, rehashing, anticipating, and being self-critical. And overanalyzing. I think I repeated something, but there's overanalyzing and being self-critical. So I think everyone can relate to those. And I think we grab them because that's how we've learned to cope. We've learned to cope a lot in our society with managing our emotions cognitively or cerebrally. And we don't encourage enough of getting in touch with our emotions and seeing our emotions as something practical.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. I don't know about everybody else, but I'm definitely a multi-offender, almost in every category.
Okay. Thank you for asking the question and for being here with us today, Tom, because I was thinking about that chocolate cake question too. And I'm like, I feel like I should know the answer, because I think she did describe it on the summit, but I couldn't remember. And I got off on a little visual tangent inside my head with the chocolate cake here. And I saw Pam commented in chat saying, good thing she didn't mention pie, because I get the same way about pie. Like pie can be my crutch. And I do like chocolate cake, Elaine, too. That's one of the types of cake that I won't turn away, because it's just rich and chocolatey and good. My mouth is watering. All right, let's move us along here. I see Liz M. Lopez has her hand raised as well. Liz, what question do you have for Elaine?
Hi, Liz.
Hello, Elaine. So you and I kind of do some adjacent work and work with some similar populations, especially with women. I have found that there's somewhat an addiction to external approval, and at the sacrifice of doing what they know is right for them. Have you found that is true with the population that you're working with? And how are you moving people out of that?
So this gets to a concept called mirroring. And it starts when you're young. And one of the roles of a parent is to be like a mirror for their child. And that's how a child gets a sense of self, their identity. So as we get older, we start using other people as mirrors. And depending on what kind of mirroring you got growing up, if you've got negative mirroring or consistent mirroring, you might find yourself being even more dependent on other people for that mirroring or reassurance. And so it's not just about caring about hurting somebody's feelings or endangering a relationship. It's about what that says about me if I upset somebody else. And so that's why what I do is I teach women how to do the opposite, which is to self-validate. And so, for example, one of them is what I call the opposite of the golden rule. So everyone knows the golden rule. You have a right to be treated the way you treat other people. The opposite of the golden rule is that you have a right. I'm sorry. The golden rule is treat people the way you want to be treated. And the opposite is you have a right to be treated the way you treat other people. And so that's what I tell women is to use their reasoning skills and their values as a way of evaluating how other people are treating them and what they have a right to in terms of how, what they deserve for themselves. And they'll ask them, if the situation reversed, would you be accepting that person wants to set boundaries? Would you be okay with that? Would you talk to that person the way they're talking to you or treat them the way they're treating you? And so it's about using your values as a way of making decisions. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, beautifully. I love the idea of the mirroring, especially in terms of how we can be so dependent on others reflecting back who we are, as opposed to letting who we are come from our own core and the reprogramming that comes with that. Yes, thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to start winding us down now. And if you're joining us a bit late here, we're doing a member spotlight here today. And we heard from Elaine Belson talking about her one-to-one coaching offerings. And again, Elaine, if you could just remind us, if people are interested in learning more about those offerings, where should they go to get the process started?
So go to theselfauthoritycoach.com. And in there, you can either request a 15-minute discovery call. You can go in and reach out to me and just email me, or you can go ahead and book that call under pricing. I have a listing of all of my different offerings.
Wonderful. And Elaine, if I could ask you to go ahead and drop that link into the Zoom chat right now. And as you're doing that, I'm going to pull up on screen here for Marketing with Meller members just some reminders about our upcoming events. And I'll remind all of you that with your membership in Marketing with Meller, you get access to 3 live virtual events every month. I'll say at least 3, because some months we have 4 and some months we even have 5 events as well. But my goal is to always provide you with those 3 events, one of which is a masterclass, which is typically an educational marketing topic. If you have something specific you'd like me to cover in the future, you can go into chat right now, let me know, and I'll add it into the calendar. In the next 2 months, we have a masterclass in May, which will be mastering the Zoom coaching workflow. I'm going to walk you through what I do when I'm working with my coaching clients, starting with the booking process all the way through to sending them the playbacks and how do I optimize that process. So I'll be going through that. And then in June, our masterclass is how and what to post on LinkedIn when you are short on time, inspired by one of our members who asked the question, who was really struggling with that. We also offer office hours, which are virtual networking with other members. We always start the office hours with going around and everyone gets their 1-minute introduction. And if there are any specific questions, we do a little bit of group think together. Sometimes questions or challenges come out in our introductions and we go a little bit deeper into those. Right now, those are on typically the second or third Friday of the month, but I'm looking at shifting those into Monday afternoon. We had an off Monday event recently and it seemed to do pretty well. I'm also still considering doing a Friday and a Monday combination with those, but that's the office hours. And the third event that we do through Marketing Meller every month is a roundtable discussion. So yesterday we had a really great roundtable where we did a debrief on the Small Business Marketing Summit. And we all went around as if we were at a giant roundtable and shared some of our key takeaways, action items that we're working on. And then we also discussed some of our top takeaways from each of the speakers at the event as well. So in the next 2 months, I have a roundtable right now scheduled for, I'm just looking at the calendar up on screen here. We're in May. Here it is. May 27th will be a roundtable. We'll be pulling up a web page and giving each other feedback on a web page. So it could be your home page, it could be a secondary landing page or something, but we'll give each other feedback on our landing pages. And then in June, we have a roundtable where we're going to practice our 1-minute introductions and we'll give each other some feedback on those introductions. So we'll do that both in the visual and we'll also do that through the Zoom chat as well. And then there are other months where I offer additional events like today, where we're doing a member spotlight interview. I'll be doing a member spotlight interview in May with Lori Vita. And I do have openings in June and beyond. So if you'd like to be featured in a member spotlight interview, do let me know. You can go into chat and say, I'd like to be featured in the future. I think I have 1 or 2 people on deck that I still need to reach out and schedule with. So it might be in the fall that I can get you scheduled in. And the other event that I've started to do is like a member viewing party, or rather a masterclass viewing party, where we'll pull up the library of past masterclasses. And they're typically 1 hour. So I'll schedule a viewing party to be 90 minutes. We'll watch the session together. And then let's say Rose is watching and she says, hey, Brenda, I have a question. We'll pause the recording. We'll talk about it and then we'll play it. And we go through and do the viewing of that together. So just a couple of things that are upcoming in Marketing with Meller. And again, if you're listening to the podcast, I'll drop the link below where you can join Marketing with Meller. So again, Elaine Belson, thank you so much for being on. Any final comments that you'd like to share with the group as we close off our discussion today?
Just thank you for the opportunity to showcase some of my knowledge. I appreciate that. And I appreciate all the wonderful questions.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here with us, Elaine. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and I'll keep the chat open for a few more minutes. But thank you again to everyone for watching. Hey, if you're looking to learn more about marketing techniques to help to shape your business, whether you're self-employed or maybe you're a small business owner and just need to brush up on some different areas of marketing, I'm here to help you. I come from a corporate marketing background and I'm always weaving in really great marketing techniques into my business, and I like to teach those techniques to you. Join Marketing with Meller by going to mellermarketing.com/join. You can join for just $67 per month. What are you waiting for? Join today. mellermarketing.com/join.